Hello, everyone. I am super excited today because it's episode 3 of Why Sci-Fi, and I have a fabulous guest, someone that I've been waiting to have on the show for a bit. Maybe we'll get into the reasons for the delay, but he's here now. It's Jonathan. It's Jonathan from,
Thank,
oh my gosh, Words in Time. Hello, Jonathan.
thank you for the introduction, Bart. It's good to
Yeah.
be here. I'm looking forward to talking about sci-fi books. We are two big sci-fi fans,
Oh, yeah.
and we're going to get into it. There's nothing more than what we like than just yapping about science fiction, and we're going to try and yap
Oh yeah,
as
we're good
best
at
we
that, I
can.
think. We're pretty
Yeah.
good at yapping. So I think that part is sorted. And the purpose of this is just to have a good time, talk about sci-fi. So before we get into maybe some a little bit heavier themes, Jonathan, I have some rapid fire questions.
Okay, I'm
So,
ready. Ready the lasers.
all right,
Shoot.
let's go. Hard sci-fi, technical sci-fi, or soft, more character driven?
Hard. I like both, but I think hard sci-fi leans into the aspects of science fiction that make science fiction unique to me
Mhm.
compared to other genres. So I'll go hard.
That's a perfect answer. I do agree. I love when they're mixed together a little bit, you know. But
Yes.
now I think I know the answer to this. Both good books, but Dune or Hyperion?
Oh, it's got to be Hyperion. Although those are two heavyweight champs. There, that's George Foreman, Muhammad Ali. Uh, I guess I'll say that Hyperion is Muhammad Ali, but
Yeah,
but you can't really go wrong either way. But I'm a
that's
Hyperion
true.
Cantos guy.
Yeah, and I think George Foreman passed away recently. So yeah,
R.I.P.
yeah. Now the next question: aliens or AI? Robots, AI,
Ooh. You know what?
artificial intelligence.
I'm not in a very AI mood right now. We're kind of getting to experience the AI takeover in real time, in real life. So I think I'll lean towards aliens. I do think both are very interesting concepts to explore within science fiction. But aliens, yeah, just the idea of first contact, biologically, philosophically, mentally, emotionally. How are they going to be similar or different to humans? How are we going to get on with them? What does it mean for humanity? I love diving into all of that with aliens.
What a fantastic answer! It's as if you prepared for this, Jonathan. Oh my God. This
Uh,
is it's really I would say one thing also about aliens for me versus robots. We live in a world that has AI right now. Aliens, we're still we're still thinking, we're still exploring the possibilities, we're still listening. Right? The Fermi Paradox. We'll maybe talk about
which,
that.
yeah, although that's maybe something we should be thankful for.
Exactly. Well, Fermi Paradox, perhaps
Yes.
the Dark Forest. Yeah. So space opera or dystopian novels because they're quite different. Both are science fiction, but quite different.
I'll go space opera because I think the scope is potentially bigger. I think you can lean more into the technology, the sci-fi concepts, different galaxies and universes. Whereas dystopian, I'm a big fan of dystopian fiction, but I think it kind of blends that literary fiction, science fiction line.
Mhm.
And I think while important and prescient and all of that kind of stuff, some of the things that you can get that are thematically rewarding out of dystopian novels, you could maybe get in books that aren't science fiction.
Right.
Whereas space opera is pretty uniquely science fiction, so I'll go space opera.
I would agree with that. And here, just as an aside, I would maybe bring up the fact, and I wanted to ask you about this, that knowing that you live in LA and all the things that the city has gone through in the recent months and is still recovering from it, it'll probably take a long time to fully recover from the devastation. I watching it on TV, I couldn't believe it. Of course, you're Australian also, and now 10 years plus in LA. But there were fires in Australia previously. The changes that we're seeing, this feels a little bit dystopian. So just like with aliens and AI, it does feel like maybe it's a little too close to home. What can you say about your experiences living in LA recently?
Yeah, it's pretty strange. It's something that was kind of hard to comprehend the scale of the fires, how quickly it spread. It did feel like something out of fiction. And going back to my home, driving through the neighborhood, seeing 70% plus of the homes gone, it did feel post-apocalyptic. It felt like we'd gotten hit by an asteroid, or alien lasers. Something just came in and took a big part of my home, my neighborhood away, and it's kind of freaky trying to sort of emotionally like reconcile with that. And maybe it'll add to my reading experience of post-apocalyptic novels. Maybe I'll be able to tap into something a little bit personal there. But you know what? I think we're going to rebuild. I don't think it's going to be a full apocalypse. Let's call it a partial apocalypse. And I think LA is going to come together strong, and we'll rebuild over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and so I'm glad that you're okay. Obviously, your family, Charlie, most of all, Charlie is
Yeah.
okay, so that's important. I'm sure everybody wants to know that Charlie is fine, doing well. So yeah, wish you all the best, and the city, of course, too. Last question in this rapid fire. It's not that rapid, but the last one. Now, time travel going forward in time, or time travel going backwards in time? If you had
Forward in
the
time.
ability.
Forward in time. Easy.
Okay.
What am I going to go backwards in time for? Spend time with the dinosaurs? I'm going to just get eaten right away. Go back to like the Dark Ages or something. They don't have iPhones. They don't have Discord. They don't have YouTube. How am I going to entertain myself being a farmer or something? Like, I'm not going to be good at that. I work at a desk with a computer all day. I'd be useless in the Middle Ages.
So would you then go forward into the future, kind of near future, just to see things that you would recognize, to see how things are?
No, far future. I don't want to go 50 years in the future. I'll probably still be alive in 50 years. I'll see it for myself. I want to go way into the future. I want to see some crazy stuff. I want to travel to Mars. I want to
like House of
I want to
Suns
go on a
kind of.
spaceship. Yeah, I want to see. I mean, it'll probably be bad, but I want to see at least where like robots and stuff go. Do we eventually meet aliens? There's a better chance of meeting aliens in the year 3000 than there is in 2025. So, yeah, let's go on an adventure, Bart. Come to the future with me.
Oh, I'm there. That's the answer you gave on this one. I'm 100% with. Even though I'm a bit of a history buff, I would love to see.
Just read some Jane Austen or something. You'll be fine.
Yeah. One more question in this kind of vein. What one book, you can only bring one, to a deserted island? What book would you bring with you? It doesn't have to be science fiction. Might as well be one, but
yeah, not How to Survive on a Desert Island for Dummies. I'm going to go with, you mentioned this, I'm going to go with House of Suns by Alistair Reynolds for a couple of reasons, because it is my favorite science. Oh, there you go. Got the plug and everything, showing it the love and care it deserves. It's my favorite science fiction novel. It is also fairly dense. So I think there's, on a desert island, you're going to need that book to last a while. It's going to need to stand up on some rereads. And there's some kind of technical, harder sci-fi concepts, like big ideas. And I think there's things that you'd discover on rereads, like some of the puzzle pieces that you didn't quite put into place the first one or two reads might start to click for you, which I think would be rewarding. And it's not huge. I think it's around 500 pages, so you're getting a little bit of juice that you could squeeze out of the book. I was, part of my logic was thinking, should I just pick a massive chunker, because then I'm kind of getting the equivalent of 2 or 3 regular books. But all the big books that I've read are part of a series, and I don't think you want to bring one book that's part of a series to a desert island, because it'll be pretty frustrating not to be able to read the rest of it. House of Suns is a standalone, so I think that would be a good choice.
I think it's a fabulous choice. It's one that I would consider as well. Fire Up on the Deep, maybe another one also similar. Well, it's basically a standalone.
It holds up on its own.
Yeah, so a fabulous choice. A book that takes place so far into the future that it's really mind-boggling. You use that word often in your videos, mind-boggling, and that book definitely fits. Also, I think in one of your videos you mentioned how in this book every 50 pages or so something would really like actually explode your mind and make you think. So it's a great one for that. I do want to reread it. It's been maybe 3 years. It hasn't been too long. But I only read it once, and it's a good one to come back to, I think, because of it's just a great book, because it's got a adventure at its heart, mystery.
Hmm.
The world building is fantastic. The ideas are great, and the characters are decent, at least decent, I would say too. So it's a good choice.
Yeah, you need an escape. I mean, you're not really going anywhere if you live on a desert island. So I
Yeah,
needed a book that I can escape with, and it's a massive adventure, House of Suns. And
yeah,
Alistair Reynolds isn't known for his characters, but I think he's decent
yeah,
as a character writer. Something that I really like about House of Suns is that there's 1,000 clones.
yeah.
And so it's kind of the same character over and over again, but it was sort of fun to me trying to pass out the little personality differences between the different clones, which I thought added sort of a fun wrinkle to the character writing in House
That's
of
right. Wrapping
Suns.
your mind around that idea of like these clones. Obviously, clones can have individual traits. They, they grow, they go, they spread through the galaxy, and then they meet every 200,000 years or something crazy like that. They get together. So fantastic book, fantastic book. And this is one of those books also that for me answers the next question, the big question really that is at heart of this series that I'm doing here. Why sci-fi? So I want to know not so much, or maybe also you could go into your origin story a little bit if you'd like. But what is it about science fiction that really sparks that joy in you when you pick up a book?
Yeah, I think the thing that I like most about science fiction is the ideas and the concepts, because I think pretty much any genre can tell a good story, can have interesting characters in some way, explore something to do with the human condition, which I think in part is why you might pick up any book. But things that are unique to science fiction are the scientific concepts, and those can be like big or small. Like it can be something sort of near future in terms of like what are computers or biotech or things like that, how they're going to affect our lives in 10, 20 years time. And then it can be like crazy stuff to do with time travel and wormholes and dark matter and aliens, and that sort of idea driven approach to writing is something that I really enjoy, and is something that I get a lot out of when it comes to reading science fiction.
Yeah, that's fantastic answer. If it wasn't science fiction that was your first love, is there a second choice, something that you might fall back on? Do you because I know you read a lot of science fiction, especially having the channel. It makes it more difficult to take a month off when you have as many followers, subscribers as you do, especially I would imagine. But if it wasn't sci-fi, what would you be reading?
So I'm all in. I don't think I've read something that isn't science fiction since 2018 or 2019.
My
Now, that's
God,
not a lifetime commitment. It's
it's
at some
pretty
point,
long.
at some point, I will try some other genres if I'm in the mood. But at the moment, I'm just always in the mood to read sci-fi.
Yeah.
I guess if I had to, for a while I thought it would be fantasy because I do like fantasy movies and TV shows. Probably my favorite recent show is Stranger Things, which is kind of sci-fi, maybe more fantasy. I know it's kind of a hybrid, blurs the genre
Yeah.
lines, but I thought it would be fantasy, and I still do want to pick up some fantasy at some point in the future, but I don't know why. Kind of recently, I've been thinking about picking up some classics. I didn't
Hmm.
really read that many classics growing up. I guess because I just didn't like the reading experience at school. My school experience to me made books seem not fun, and so I did read a little bit here and there. But when it came to the classics, I was mostly doing them through school, and so after school, I picked up a handful of them here and there, and the only one, well, actually, there's probably about five or six, which I would say were like 5-star books. So it's not like I haven't enjoyed any classics. But the one that really stood out to me, the one that made an impact on me when I read this, I was maybe like 20 years old, was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
And the reason why that book was so impactful for me as a reader was because up until that point, I was very plot driven. And I still like a good plot driven story. But I think as my way of rebelling against my English teachers were like, but what's the symbolism? What's the metaphorical journey that's being explored here? What are the references and the allusions? And I'm like, nah, I just want to see like the guy fight the monster and do they rescue the kidnapped son and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't really care so much about the prose, like writing in and of itself, outside of the story, outside of the themes. And I read The Picture of Dorian Gray and I was just blown away. The prose was so beautiful. Every single line, every choice of word, it just flowed seamlessly to where almost every sentence felt like a poem. And all these poems like linked together like this flowing poetic river. And I was like,
Hmm.
what is this emotional response that young Jonathan is having to prose? So I wouldn't say I'm a prose snob now, but I think that was sort of the beginning of my journey of enjoying prose on a different level. And so I think there are great poetic writers in science fiction. I think Christopher Rocchio, Dan Simmons, um,
Yeah, that's it.
Theodore Sturgeon. There's Ray Bradbury. I think that's something that you can get while reading science fiction. But it's something maybe when I'm like, you know what, I feel like mixing things up a little bit. I might like to try and find some classics and kind of explore that part of my reading brain a bit more.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any
I can do.
recommendations for me? Have you read any good classics? But
I don't know if they're classics, but they're in that classic to me in that classic vein. So Stoner, for example.
okay,
Stoner is a book that a lot of people talk about. I picked it up, I think, because of Joanna from Joanna Reads. She loved it, and it blew me away. There's very little happening in that book, but the prose was excellent, and I really felt like I was one with the protagonist. It really felt like I was on a journey, and the reality of the experience was something so foreign to most of the craziness that can happen in some of these books that we read,
yeah,
like Hyperion over my shoulder there. That struck a chord. Remains of the Day is another one that I read by Ishiguro. We both together read Clara and the Sun, and completely
yeah,
different feel. Ishiguro can is very flexible as an author, I think, because Clara and the Sun feels like a completely different author would have wrote that book than Remains of the Day. That's a story of a butler. Again, very little happens in that book. Butler going on vacation and thinking back about his life's choices, but it blew my mind in a different way than Hyperion, or House of Suns or Fire Up on the Deep. These books, beautifully written as well. Beloved by Toni Morrison is one of my favorite books. I couldn't believe the way she was able to structure sentences and make me feel things. Happening to people who are very different than I am, living at a very different time. Um, this, so yeah, those are books that come to mind right now. If I think about it, there'd be a lot probably. I try to sprinkle in different genres around my science fiction reads. Yeah.
do you like slice of life? If I came to you, Bart, and I was like, you got to check out this movie, or here's a book, it's a great slice of life. Is that a good pitch or is it a bad pitch?
It's a maybe. It's a maybe. It's a maybe because I suppose you could say that like Stoner is slice of life, but it's a there are big themes explored in it. But what I'm finding lately that I appreciate about authors who have the ability to write with nuance, where they're really not telling you what to think. They're not showing you on the page really what's happening. There's this layer underneath that you have to discover for yourself. So then, slice of life, prosaic things happening, could really evoke incredible emotions in me when it's me conjuring them up. It's me bringing them to they're bubbling up to the forefront. But
Mm.
yeah, it could work. It could work, but it has to have that some heft behind it. Something has to strike a chord. Yeah.
I used to be very anti slice of life. If someone said, "Oh, you got to watch this. It's a slice of life," so it's just a regular story. It's just about a guy. He works at an office. I'm like, why would I want to watch this? I work at an office. I consume media specifically to get out of the office. This sounds terrible to me. But I have softened on this over time. I think it's, like most things, a matter of execution. If you are just telling a mundane story and it's mundane, well, that's a mundane experience. Why would I want a mundane experience? But if you're telling something that maybe is mundane in the description, but the things that you are exploring and revealing are profound or universal or personal or relatable, that's where the magic is. And I
Yeah.
think people like being able to connect with stories like that. I like being on the top of a volcano or on a spaceship or in the year 24,520.
That's me on top of the volcano, by the way.
Oh, heck yeah. That's awesome. See, there we go. Yeah.
That's
Wouldn't wouldn't
Almost the top of Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa.
wouldn't this video be so much better if we were both on top of a mountain right
Yeah,
now? That would
yeah,
get way more views than just two idiots in a room. Like, the mountain is the better option, objectively. But
yeah,
if within a room you can find something to say about yourself or people or society, and it resonates with people intellectually or emotionally, then yes, I do think there's value in that.
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I think we align pretty well. We've talked about this maybe a few times in the past with our reads, and I think we're on the same page also when it comes to this slice of life. So now moving on, so because I have a few things I wanted to get to and to try. We'll see how it works. Not a contest necessarily, but I do have something for you. So here's a book that I think you've read, and I want to see if you're able to. The book is out of the view of the camera. I hope it is.
Yes.
If you can pick up what book it is by me reading first couple of sentences, just a couple of sentences. Let's see
Ooh,
if you can
okay.
guess what this is. So I'm putting you
I'm
on a
up for the
spot.
challenge. Yes.
Well, we'll find out. You're willing to try, but let's see if you can guess what book this is. And if you haven't read it, I have a second choice, but I'm pretty sure you did. Tell me, what is happiness? Happiness? Happiness is to wake up on a bright spring morning after an exhausting first night spent with a beautiful, passionate, murderesses. Can't say that word. Multi-murderesses. Does it strike any bells?
I'll be honest, this is not ringing any bells.
Okay.
There's maybe a faint ding off screen. Uh,
You want to take a guess or
I'll tell you what I'm thinking, but I'm pretty sure it's wrong because I feel like the one that I'm thinking of also has quite a good first line, and I think it's something else other than this. But the murderesses reminds me of a character from The Quantum Thief. But I think The Quantum Thief's first line has something to do with him being in the dilemma prison. So I'm gonna have to say I'm blanking on this one, but
okay? Well, here it comes.
okay, nice use of weapons.
You have
In
read
my
Use of
defense, I
Weapons.
read this maybe like 4 years ago, and
Okay,
I'll be honest,
this was
I'm
a
not
tough
as
one.
high on it as some
Yeah,
people.
yeah. I
I
did this.
like the culture, and I think the idea of the structure, the unique structure and use of weapons, the two storylines, the two timelines
Yeah.
doing this, very cool. But just on a page by page basis, I just wasn't having that good a time. I felt a little bit lost and disconnected, so that might be
Mhm.
why I didn't remember this one as well. What did you think of use of weapons, Bart?
I'm loving culture. I'm making my way through it. I just read book four, which is kind of like short stories. Uh, I enjoyed this. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was great. I read this with Sam and Whitney from Secret Sauce, and we had a good time. We argued a little bit about the ending of this book. The structure was challenging. It's a book that I would like to reread, but no, it worked for me. I thought it was interesting. It was different. Maybe not an all-time favorite. Maybe not even an all-time favorite from Ian M. Banks. I think I may prefer another one, but I did enjoy it. But let me give you a chance to redeem yourself. This one you might get here. Let's see one more quick.
I'll just give
quick.
one more caveat to my use of weapons take because I know Banks fans are very passionate, and use of weapons is one of, if not the most popular culture books.
Yeah.
I had just read, just before use of weapons, a book with a similar ish structure and a
Okay.
similar reveal at the end. And I
Really?
think if I had read use of weapons first, it would have landed with a bigger punch. I still don't think it would want to be one of my favorites of all time, but I think I would have liked it a bit more. But just that combination of feeling a little bit lost and disconnected, and then having just read something with a kind of similar ending just before it, is maybe why it didn't resonate
Can I
with me
ask
as
what,
much as
what
it
book?
did other culture fans. I'll
What
tell you
book?
off air because I feel like it's a spoiler. Because I feel like if you have read the
Okay,
ending
got it.
of one, it'll
Thank you.
it'll spoil the
Thank you.
second one.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I need to redeem myself, Bart.
Let's
Give
go.
me a
I
second
have
shot.
one more, and I feel like this one you'll have a better chance of getting. As always, before the war mind and I shoot each other, I try to make small talk.
That's so funny. The Quantum Thief. There you go.
And you said it, I was
Premonition.
like,
That I knew it was coming, but my other self
yeah,
said, you know
you
what?
sensed it.
You're not going to get this one, but I'm going to help you get the next one by bringing the Quantum Thief to the forefront of your mind. There you go.
Yep. And this was a recent read for me, and I really enjoyed it. Also, not that I enjoyed it because you enjoyed it, but I read it excited because I knew how much you've been plugging this series that doesn't get enough love. Not too many people talk about Hanu Rajanimi and his series. I only read the first one. I will continue. Did you like the follow-ups, or was it book one that stood out and then was it downhill, or were they all for you equally good?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the whole trilogy. I probably slightly prefer the first one.
Mhm.
The second one, I found maybe even harder than
Really?
the first book.
Oh shit.
And then the third book, I think it had some of the elements. It felt a little bit more similar to the first book, and I thought was awesome as well. But I think I gave the books a 9.5, an 8, and a 9. So it wasn't a big drop off.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first one's my favorite, but I think if you like the first one, I think the whole trilogy is worth your time.
Yeah, well, I just gave it thumbs up. So yes,
There you
I
go.
like the first one.
Good job, StreamYard.
Cool, awesome. So you did good. You got it. We definitely are going to count Quantum Thief as a fabulous guest of the first line. Now, I had a question. I was thinking about the name of your channel, Words in Time. How did that come about? What are you thinking naming the channel Words in Time? I think it's beautiful. It's poetic. It's got this depth behind it. But I'm curious how it came
Yeah.
about. What are your thoughts on Words in Time?
Yeah, so when I was thinking of a channel name, I was just kind of mulling over certain ideas to do with books in general and science fiction. And the two things that sort of came to me that I ended up sort of melding together was one, moments in time, just sort of like the fleeting nature of things, kind of like I don't know, if it's sort of like the ethereal nature of existence, this kind of balance between like, past, present, and future, and just trying to stay in the moment as much as possible. And then I sort of combined that with the famous quote from Blade Runner, "Tears in Rain," which kind of also sort of alluded to that, a similar kind of concept. And I thought, well, yeah, time. I love like time travel stories. I love time as a concept, and while reading, what are we experiencing? The books in time, pages in time, words in time. Yeah, I kind of like that one, words in time. And
Yeah.
so that's how we came to be. I think August 2021. I think it was.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's why I was thinking that there must be thought put behind it. It's not accidental. And indeed, I was right. You are very poetic today, I have to say, with the way you're described. Very poetic. I'm loving it. And Blade Runner, I rewatched it fairly recently, maybe a month ago, and yeah, that the ending is so powerful.
All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
I think I prefer the book in some ways. I think most people like the movie more. The movie's just different, goes for something else, I think. But I enjoyed the book very much as well. Are you Blade Runner or Do Androids Dream fan?
I'm gonna throw you a curveball, but I'm Blade Runner 2049.
Okay.
I like the sequel more.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie was made for me. My favorite actor, Ryan Gosling. Favorite director, Denis Villeneuve. Everybody's favorite composer, Hans Zimmer. My
Yeah.
favorite cinematographer, Roger Deakins. And then you throw that into a
It's a good
sci-fi
combo.
world, futuristic cyberpunk inspired thing by Philip K. Dick. It's like, woof, woof, woof,
Yeah.
woof. That is some ingredients for a tasty movie, but
Yeah, I agree, and I do love the follow up also to Blade Runner, fabulous. And isn't Ryan Gosling? I think I'm right about that. Going to be in Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary. He's gonna be the star,
yeah.
right? So that's interesting.
Yeah, to be honest, Ryan Gosling is not quite the person that I envisioned while reading Project Hail Mary, but I'm just such a fan of him. I think he does comedy really well. If you've seen Nice Guys, the Barbie movie,
Yeah.
he was in something else recently that I think was quite comedic. So I think he has the acting chops
Yeah.
in general, as well as the comedic chops to pull that off. And yeah, I'm a massive fan of the book Project Hail Mary. So I'll definitely be lining up on opening night for that one.
Yeah, no, same. I can't wait. I can't wait. I like the book a lot, and I think the movie is going to be awesome if it strikes that balance between reality, the way Martian did, but then also sprinkling maybe even more of the comedic elements than the movie Martian had. Even though that was I thought it was very well done as well. As far
Yeah,
as
I
that
get a lot
balance.
of odd looks when I try to describe my take on The Martian because I love The Martian book. And The
Yeah,
Martian movie I thought was good, but I
yeah,
feel like other people like it more than I did. And when people ask me why, one of the reasons is that I think they took out a lot of the sci-fi that I enjoyed. One of my favorite scenes in the book
Hmm.
is Mark Watney triangulating an incoming dust storm. He's like, you
Mhm.
know what? I'm losing visibility over here in this direction. I think that's the sign of a sandstorm. So he's calculating his visibility on these different angles to figure out where the storm is coming from, how fast it's moving, and like how he can escape, where he needs to get to, and by why. And I remember reading this, and I was like, I have never been on the edge of my seat like this while reading about maths. This is sci-fi done correctly. And I was so looking forward to seeing like this big old dust storm and him figuring it out in the movie. And they cut that out because I guess it was
Yeah.
too nerdy for
But you know what I
90% of
heard?
the population, but I wanted to see it, but
I hear you. What I heard, and this is not confirmed, but I read recently that one of the only things that was wrong with The Martian, both the book and the beginning of the movie, when there is a sandstorm, you can't get rid of that sandstorm, is on Mars because of the atmosphere being so thin. A sandstorm, even a big one, is like nothing. You would feel like maybe a breeze. They're not dangerous in
ooh.
any way. But we don't have to get into it because I'm not. It's not confirmed. But I did
That's
read that somewhere
that's
that that's the
funny.
only
That's
thing.
very funny to me because you're essentially saying they cut that scene for the 90% of people that would think it was too nerdy and scientific, and then also the 1% of people smart enough to realize it wasn't accurate. All right,
Yeah, maybe that's
we've got to
the
avoid the wrath of the Reddit nerds and the
exactly.
boredom from the general population. And that's why I've got
Yeah,
such a weird take because I'm in that 9%. I,
yeah,
I like sci-fi enough to want to see it in there, but I'm not smart enough to realize that it was inaccurate.
yeah. To avoid the wrath of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes.
Oh
Very
my God,
interesting. That's
cool.
funny.
I wanted to ask you. We love books. We love reading them, but also collecting them somewhat. We've not too long ago. It feels like it's been too long. Actually, we talked about we both acquired Solaris by Tree Something Press, and
Ooh.
that's coming. You haven't received it, have you? I would be upset if you got it
What?
because
Yours
I
hasn't come yet? Let me just. No. Yes, Conversation Tree Press, a limited edition
nice
of
one.
Solaris,
Yeah,
one of my favorite books. I know you're a
yeah,
big Stanislaw Lem fan, and we are both eagerly awaiting the delivery of those.
that's right.
So I've got a couple of nice books for novels that I'm a particularly big fan of. I don't have the biggest collection. I'm slowly adding to it, and that's one that I'm excited to see on the shelf.
Yeah. What is like right now before Solaris arrives? If you have to point to one book, what are you happiest to pick up? Is there a book that stands out?
So Bart has thrown a lot of rapid fire questions at me today, for which I was not prepared. One of the few questions that Bart did tell me he was going to ask
Yeah.
is, do I have a prize book? And that is a signed, limited edition Dead-Eye Dick by Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut is my favorite writer of all time. I think you can call him a science fiction author. He's not exclusively science fiction, but things like Slaughterhouse-Five, The Sirens of Titan, definitely science fiction. And I fell in love with Kurt Vonnegut maybe about 15 years ago, and I read most of what he had written, and I sort of saved a couple. You know, the thought of having read all of Vonnegut's novels made me a little bit sad. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to hang on to a couple. And I think all of his novels are fairly highly rated, but some are more famous than others. And this was not one of his most highly rated ones. And I read it last year, and it's possibly my favorite book that I have ever read. And I hunted this down. I'll show you. Hopefully this won't get anything like out of focus or anything.
Oh my God. And that's a fabulous signature too. As
Yes.
signatures go, this one is quite stunning.
He has a cool signature. He was a bit of an artist. Sometimes some of the doodles and things that you see in or on his books are Kurt Vonnegut originals. So I was able to hunt down. I think was there 350 of these? Anyway, limited edition, signed by Delacorte Press when they came out in the 80s. I think they made these for Dead-Eye Dick, Galapagos, and Bluebeard. And as my favorite author, with one of my favorite books, having just like a little piece of Vonnegut, just even if it's just an imaginary transfer of energy from his mind to his pen to the ink onto the page to a book that is now mine, that will be a treasured possession of mine forever.
And what is it about Vonnegut that strikes a chord with you? Is it his humor? Is it the absurdity of the situations? Is it the depth that's kind of hiding underneath some of that absurdity? I haven't read a whole lot, but I did read a couple of Vonnegut books.
I think something that stands out about Vonnegut for me is that he will be able to see things, notice things about the world that are odd or strange or seem off or seem wrong. And he'll say, hey, isn't this weird? And you'll think, yes, this is weird. Why has nobody else ever made this observation before? Why has nobody else ever pointed it out in a way that Vonnegut does, in a way that seems so insightful and relatable and important? And he goes about it in a way that's not necessarily like, this is bad, this is the answer, or, you know, everything is terrible or everything is screwed, even though, you know, Vonnegut can be a little bit grumpy or negative at times. He points out the absurdity in it. He's able to point these things out in a way that is humorous, is able to bring some light and levity to it, is able to bring you some joy and laughter out of these things that he's pointing out. And I think something that I appreciate is that, I guess, solutions, or maybe not even solutions, but just sort of suggestions for how to deal with these things in life is things that we're all able to find in just companionship or food or music or art. And it's like, if we live, you know, on a rock that's flying through like an infinite space, you know, what purpose do you have? Or what, you know, while trying to figure out the big questions of life and the universe, why not dance? Why not laugh? You know, why not paint something? And so he just has sort of like a perspective on the world that he communicates in just such an enjoyable and entertaining way, because he has these crazy stories that would like travel through space. And we have things like Ice Nine, this kind of like apocalyptic thing, sort of like exposing like the dangers of science and technology. Cat's Cradle, one of my favorites. And you can be reading about something like the apocalypse, the end of humanity, and you'll be laughing the whole time. And it's like, well, you know, if it's all going away, we might as well laugh while doing it. If we're going to go through an apocalypse, I want to go through an apocalypse with Kurt Vonnegut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I could totally understand. I did enjoy both books that I read, and I'm looking forward to continuing the journey through Kurt Vonnegut's back catalog. Now, moving right along. Next, I want to going back to the contest. I don't know if that's the right word for this, but I want to see if you guess who this person is. So now we're guessing who this might be. So I have like two levels of help maybe. In the first one, I'm just gonna say that this is very difficult. Like if you get this, I would be shocked. I would be shocked because
Okay.
this is something that I heard and just came back to me. So this is going to be an author, obviously, science fiction author. So I'll give you that right up front. We're not talking about like the Pope or something. It's not. It's authors, science fiction authors. This person is someone that you would never alive. I'll give you that, but you would never be able to meet him at a book signing in Los Angeles.
I think I know who this is.
That would
Greg
blow my mind.
Egan.
No.
Well, okay. Dang.
Nope.
I'll
What?
tell you why I said Greg Egan. There's
Mhm.
no pictures of Greg Egan available on the internet. Greg Egan is just a complete mystery. He's like, I write
He's a
books
hermit.
and that's it. I don't have well, he has a website, but it is text only. No pictures of
Yeah.
him on the website. He doesn't have a Facebook profile. He's not on Instagram. He's not doing book signings. He just puts hard sci-fi out into the world and
Very hard,
lets
and then he
sci-fi fans
hides.
like us enjoy it. So,
Yeah.
dang, I thought I got that one. I was
Well,
excited
let
for
me
a
give you
second.
let me give you a little bit more of a backstory.
Yeah, give me the
So,
second clue. Yeah.
so hey, I have this written here. So I am an SF author who, due to a felony conviction stemming from an incident at the U.S.-Canadian border, cannot enter U.S. So the reason why he wouldn't be at the book signing isn't because he's not interested. Perhaps he would be.
Okay.
But
I think I know who it is.
go ahead.
It is the author of Blindsight, Peter Watts.
Yes, you got it. That is awesome. No, I did not think you would get that. That shows the depth to which you dive in your science fiction knowledge. Very impressive. Wow.
Peter Watts.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I've just read Blindsight, which I loved, and then Starfish, which I also liked quite a lot as well. What Peter Watts have you read?
Just Blindside. I need to reread it.
Did you like it?
Yes. Well, one of those books that I didn't love the reading experience, but I ended it and I kept thinking about it. So it was something that stayed with me, makes me want to go back to. Very thought-provoking, interesting, different than so many other science fiction books. Yeah, I mean, I definitely liked it for the thoughts, ideas that it sparked as I was reading it. But yeah, I didn't love the reading experience. But I do think it's a great book, and I think it's one of those books that if I read or when I reread it, it may be something that is going to hit differently, kind of knowing what to expect.
Yeah, I think I had a somewhat similar reading experience. I might have liked it a touch more, but I agree especially the opening of the book is a little obtuse. It's a little dense. It's a little hard to get into because
It keeps
Peter
you at a
Watts-
distance, I felt.
Yeah, he doesn't really let you in
Yeah.
to sort of the secrets of the world. And for me, it was only the last kind of 150 pages where things started to click into place. And
Yeah.
when everything it was leading up to in terms of the ideas, in terms of the themes, just kind of came crashing down. It was one of those books that gives you like an existential crisis. I'm
Yeah.
like, did this book just like change the way I view the world and my existence? And so for that, I hold it in pretty high regard because of how
I do too.
memorable
I
and
do.
impactful it is. But I agree, it's not necessarily the most fun book to read.
Yeah. It is a book that has something to say, and it's something very interesting that it
Yes.
does say. Yeah, so I do want to reread it. Now, let's go. I have a couple of things. I don't know if we'll get to everything, but since you did so well with Peter Watts, let's do another one. Like if you get this, I'll be also very happy. So here's a quote. I love quotes. Quotes are like these tidbits of information they're like something like poetry, where you can forever just remember a line, a verse, and it evokes some emotion. I think quotes are amazing for a similar reason. And here's a
They're
quote.
like books, but shorter.
Jonathan, you are a genius. Uh, so here's a quote, and I'm looking for the author of the quote. I wonder if you've read it, if you've heard it,
Can
if
I
you've
ask
seen it.
beforehand, is it a quote from a book or a quote that they said not in
I
a
don't.
book?
I don't believe this was in a book. I just believe it's a
Okay.
quote that's attributed to an
Yes.
author.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
So
ready.
yeah, here's the quote. Either we are alone in the universe or we are not. Both are equally terrifying.
I think this is Arthur C. Clarke.
Yes. That's awesome.
Clarke, he's a quote machine because when you brought up the topic, I think this one might be too famous for you to use as your quiz question. But the first thought of like sci-fi author quote that came to mind was his, I don't want to butcher it now because it's so classic. Any sufficiently advanced
Yeah.
technology is indistinguishable from magic.
magic. Yep.
So that's a banger,
I
and
think
the
so.
one that you just read's a banger. I mean, Clarke, man, he's
Well, and
putting
this
flames to page.
and this I was thinking about this quote specifically because I wanted to highlight one of your videos. So in this quote, he's talking about obviously aliens. Are we alone in the universe? If we are alone, well, what the hell? That's a tremendously scary proposition to be responsible for the only life in the vastness of space.
Yeah.
That's scary. If we're not alone, well, there are some scary possibilities to that as well. And Fermi Paradox we mentioned, and I wanted to. I'm sure I'm guessing most, if not all, of the viewers know your channel, probably are subscribers. But if they aren't, obviously, I recommend you all stop watching this, go to Jonathan's channel. There's so much content then. But I think it's your number one video as far as the views. It's a video that talks about this essentially, right? It's a video. You have over 200,000 views on it, which congratulations, first of all. That's awesome. That's amazing. So many people watching Jonathan talk about Fermi Paradox, talking about the three-body problem, right?
Yeah, that's sort of the interesting thing about YouTube because I made that video a couple of years ago because I was just such a big fan of the Remembrance of Earth Past trilogy, and I thought that was a really cool concept that he explored and included in the story. And I thought, oh, this would be a fun topic to make a video on. And I made that video, and it did fairly well relative to my channel size, got a few views. But then, maybe like a year later, the Netflix series on the three-body problem came out, and people must have been searching for the three-body problem or the Fermi Paradox, and that video blew up like a year after I made it. So that was sort of like a cool little YouTube experience.
Yeah. And since we're talking about this Fermi Paradox, your video, just gut feeling. Are we alone in the universe, or do you firmly believe that there is life out there?
I think there's life out there. If you make me go, are humans alone in the universe, or is there something else out there? I'll lean towards there being something else out there, just because of I know how rare life is, how specific the conditions are that would be required for it,
Yeah.
and there's also things like there could be a creator and things like that only chose to make humans. There's different possible explanations for why life is so rare, or we could be the only ones. But I think just due to the sheer unimaginable size of the universe, the idea that there's nothing else out there, to me, seems less likely. And I think part of me just thinks aliens would be cool. I'd like to think that there's somebody else out there somewhere, even if they're galaxies and galaxies away and we never interact, we never meet. Something about that just kind of feels cool to me. So that's the way I lean. How about you, Bart? Are you alien or no alien?
100% alien, just exactly for the exact same reasons that you said. The vastness of space, it would be an impossibility, no matter how unlikely the chances are of life sparking because of the sheer numbers. If it did happen here, it had to happen in so many places, even within our own galaxy, let alone when we're talking about the universe. So, yeah, of course, do I think that there's a possibility of us finding out maybe in our lifetimes? Well, then I'm a little bit more skeptical that in this vastness of space we're able to communicate or in any way. And I just read Fiasco with Richard from Vintage SF. We did a buddy read, and then we did a great video on his channel just yesterday. We shot it.
I think it's intelligent literature that happens to be science fiction.
And we talked about that book, which is one of the, well, it's the last science fiction book written by Stanislaw Lem, and also deals with first contact or a fiasco of first contact, I suppose. His view of how difficult, even if there are aliens, his view was quite skeptical on how that life would evolve and what would be the chances of any meaningful communication taking, kind of like Solaris, essentially, but a bit of a different take. Solaris was even more ambiguous. There is some semblance of a contact in this book, but yeah, I strongly recommend it, Jonathan. If you get a chance to read Fiasco at some point, it's a good one, I think.
Nice. I've read 2 Lem books, Solaris, which I loved, and the Futurological Congress, which I also loved. So
Crazy.
Lem is 2 for 2, and I do own The Invincible. I'll be reading The Invincible this year. Fiasco sounds pretty good. Would you put it in your like top 5 Lem books? Is that definitely one that I need to read next?
Maybe recency bias. I've read a lot of the Lems years ago, and I'm kind of like going back, trying to pick a time and read a Lem. So it's a little difficult to rank them for me, but I thought it was fantastic. It's a little bit all over the place, a ton of digressions, and some of them may hit a little bit more than others, depending on what you're interested in. But it really shows his mind, the intelligence, and his thoughtfulness, and the way he looked at different aspects. So I think it's a fascinating read, and there is like a spine of a story that is held together that is very cohesive too. But then just at times he's like, all of a sudden we're talking about game theory for like, I don't know, 20 pages. Stuff like that happens randomly.
I don't think I'd mind that, to be honest, especially when it's Lem, because he's going to have something interesting to say about any of those topics, even if it is a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah,
I'm prepared to go on a tangent with you, Lem.
Yeah. I think you would. I think you would enjoy it. Completely different than Futurological Congress. That reminded me more of Philip K. Dick than maybe like Solaris, Lem's Solaris. So,
Yeah, me too.
what are you reading now? Like, what are the plans for the near future? What's going on with Jonathan and Words in Time?
Yes,
Any
so I
fun
just
news?
finished Born by Jeff Vandermeer, and which I think will appeal to Vandermeer fans. I think if you liked Annihilation, you'll probably like this one too. It's maybe a touch more accessible, but it still has
Okay.
that Vandermeer mystery, that Vandermeer weirdness. It's a little bit out there. And the next book that I'm going to be picking up is Web of Angels by John M. Ford, which is one of the first cyberpunk books. Came out in 1980. Very influential, but perhaps a little bit underhyped. We'll see once I read it whether I think it kind of deserves to be higher placed within the cyberpunk canon. And in general, I just like to read a mix of hard sci-fi, soft sci-fi, classic, modern. But a couple of things that I'm sort of focusing on for maybe the rest of 2025, some sort of specific videos that I want to make are on cyberpunk. I want to kind of round out my cyberpunk knowledge. And there's a few dystopian novels that I want to finish before making a dystopian focused video. And then maybe a couple more very recent reads. Because, it's interesting. I feel like within the fantasy community, anything, more than like 10 years old is kind of considered classic. Like,
Yeah.
People read Lord of the Rings, they read Wheel of Time. And then a lot of the stuff that is popular, at least on booktube, has come out in the last 10 years. Whereas I think like anything more recent than like the 80s is pretty modern. Like if I'm reading Stephen Baxter, a Stephen Baxter book from the 90s. I'm like, oh, that's modern. So I want to read some stuff that's come out maybe in the last 5 years, some 2020s books, just to show some more love to some present authors, which I do like to do. Like I'm a fan of Rocchio and Reynolds and Tchaikovsky. So I do read modern authors, but I want to make that a little bit more of a priority to read things kind of closer to their release date.
That was one of the questions I had that I kind of skipped over as I'm looking at my questions here, and you kind of answered it. But are you more of a? I'm just curious for myself, more of a modern, whatever that means, in science fiction, or classic sci-fi fan? And by classics, let's say like 70s, like New Wave and prior to New Wave, and New Wave being kind of the the line. Dick and Ursula K. Le Guin kind of straddling the line, let's say.
Okay, interesting. I think of New Wave as more classic in my mind.
Yeah.
So if you
So
go
then
pre New Wave, that's I've probably the total number of books I've read would then be less than half, because if you're just limiting it to like 50s and earlier. I've read a decent amount of 40s and 50s sci-fi, but I haven't actually read that much like Golden Era science fiction, because there weren't as many novels. It was more short stories, and I like short stories, but I prefer novels. So I do try and read some of the most famous stories from science fiction history, because I think it's important to the development of the genre. But comparatively, it probably hasn't made up as a bigger slice of my reading history. In general. So I'm gonna try and not give a wishy-washy answer, because this is actually a video that I want to make soon, in the next month or two, sort of like classic modern. I want to take all of the ratings, so I'll do it subjectively, but I also to find some sort of objective measure of my own subjective taste. I'm going to take all of my ratings for modern books, classic books, see if the average is higher from one or the other, especially if it's a statistically significant difference between the two. But to answer your question in general, I think I like them about an even amount for different reasons. I think the classic books tend to be shorter. You don't get too many 1,000-page chunkers that were written in the 50s. They're definitely more ideas focused, which maybe comes at the expense of characters, which I don't really mind as an ideas focused reader. And a lot of those ideas seem more novel. They seem more original. Sometimes, unfortunately, even if it's done executed quite well, a modern take on an old book, it's like, oh, it was good, but it wasn't the first. You're always kind of losing points for not being the first. So I think there's some things that I get more out of classic science fiction, but I think there's things that modern science fiction does well. They're able to build on some of those ideas. Some things that might feel a bit dated. Well, we're now getting revisions. We're now projecting further into the future based on sort of what we've learned over the last, 50 years or whatever. And I think just in terms of, the plot and character development style, maybe is a little bit more geared towards the modern reader, which can, make for enjoyable reading experiences. Like something like, I'm trying to think, like a Blake Crouch or an Andy Weir. It's not necessarily, doesn't have the gravitas of a Dune or a Hyperion. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be like a 5-star read. I'm just enjoying it in a different way.
Right.
But then I also think people dismiss modern sci-fi as like not being as weighty. But I think if you look for it, you can find that weighty type of writing within modern. So that was a pretty yappy answer. I said in the book at the beginning of the video we might do some yapping. That might have been the yappiest response to all of your questions so far. So I apologize, but
no, do not apologize. It was an honest answer, and I love the idea of kind of analytically, scientifically figuring out by adding stuff, and figuring out. That's very, very Jonathan-like. So I loved your approach to figuring out what type of science fiction you love best. That's fantastic. And I do know that. You do go back. I think I've heard you talk about Frankenstein, for example, going back to 19th century proto science fiction book and enjoying it. So you are definitely well read through the whole scope of SF.
Yeah, that's something else that I'd maybe like to tick off a few more things from, because I've read Frankenstein, some H.G. Wells, some. Oh, why is the author name not coming to me? They're so famous. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh, Jules Verne.
Yes, Jules Verne. So I have read some of the science fiction from the 1800s, but there's probably some more that I should add to that list of mine. So yeah, that's what people ask, like, why do you read nothing but sci-fi? It's like, well,
There's so much.
there's so much good
Yeah.
sci-fi books from all different decades, all different subgenres. That's why it doesn't feel boring, because it doesn't feel like I'm eating the same meal over and
Yeah.
over again. It's there's quite a lot of variety that you can find within science fiction. Have any
Amazing.
favorites from the 1800s that I should read if I haven't already?
Yes, I like Time Machine. I feel like I read Frankenstein years ago when I was in Poland still, but I'm not 100% sure that I did. Or I read parts of it for sure because I had the book, but I don't have a vivid memory of it. So I don't want to say that I enjoyed it or not, because I just don't remember much. So not a lot. I used to read Verne. I loved Verne. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 80 Days Around the World, like all these
Yeah.
books. The one, forget the title, Journey to the Center of the Earth. I had a beautiful cover in Poland. I don't have that book. It lost beautiful cover of the. So yeah, so a lot. But that's probably about it. I don't know what else is out there. War of the Worlds, of course, another one. But yeah, that's about it from the
Very
19th
nice.
century.
Yeah. Well, if anyone in the comments wants to let us know if they think there's some early sci-fi that's maybe a little bit underrated, drop it in the comments for us.
Yeah, I still have lots of hauls from the earlier 20th century, before books, pre-World War II, or some post, like Stapleton. I haven't read. There's a lot. The list of shame is long
Yeah.
for me, for sure.
And it never seems to get shorter.
Yeah,
Because the
yeah.
more you read, the more you learn, and
Yeah.
it's a never-ending battle. One step forward, two steps back, but it's an honorable fight that I'm happy to fight alongside you, Bart.
Yes, we're doing it together. I love it. And I love this episode, Jonathan. I have to say, wrapping it up, this was amazing. You were on fire, incredible, poetic, painting pictures with words and time. The time is an hour. We spent an hour chatting, yapping, for sure, especially towards the end. I agree. But it was amazing. So I wanna thank you. I wanna send everyone who's watching, who's still with us at the end of this video, to Jonathan's channel. Please subscribe if you haven't. Check out Jonathan's Discord, Patreon. Jonathan is one of the best, if not the top science fiction booktuber, for me, for sure. But also objectively, I think there may be a case might be made for that. So check out Jonathan's Patreon. I'll link everything down below. So look for that. So thank you, Jonathan. Any last words for you before we end?
Yeah, just thank you for having me, Bart. I think part of the reason why I started my channel is because I like science fiction, but it was also to find other people that like science fiction, whether that's people in the comments or on Discord, or other YouTubers such as yourself. And yeah, it's just been fun getting together and being able to chat about something that we're both passionate about. And I hope other people are able to find something similar in the sci-fi YouTube community, whether that's in the comment section of Bart's videos, or Discord, or anything else. Yeah, just happy to meet other sci-fi fans and get to yap with them.
That's right. I love it. Well said. Nothing else to add. Episode number 3 of Why Sci-Fi is over. Thank you, Jonathan. This was awesome. I appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.